Figure skating is one of the oldest, most expressive, and most misunderstood sports in the Olympic Games. To many viewers, it looks graceful and elegant, almost effortless, but behind that surface beauty is a history shaped by survival, engineering, cultural change, politics, and relentless discipline. The story of figure skating begins long before it ever became a sport, and long before it became art. It begins on frozen water. Long before organized competition, people in Northern Europe skated because they had to. Frozen rivers and canals were winter roads. In places like the Netherlands, skating was transportation. People traveled between towns, carried goods, and went about daily life on blades attached to wooden shoes. Those early skates were crude. Animal bones tied to boots with leather straps. There were no edges, no curves, no precision. Movement came from pushing with poles rather than gliding. Control was limited, but the idea was revolutionary. Humans learned how to move efficiently across ice. As skates improved, something changed. People began to notice patterns. Certain skaters could glide more smoothly. They could carve shapes into the ice, circles, loops, figures. These shapes weren't just decorative, they demonstrated control, balance, and mastery of the blade. This is where figure skating gets its name. By the 17th and 18th centuries, skating had evolved from transportation into recreation, especially among the upper classes of Europe. In Scotland and England, skating clubs formed. In the Netherlands, skating scenes appeared in paintings, showing how deeply embedded the activity had become in daily culture. But it was in Britain where skating began to formalize into something resembling a sport. In the 18th century, the Edinburgh Skating Club emerged as one of the first organized skating societies. Members emphasized precision, posture, and the ability to trace perfect figures on the ice. This wasn't about speed, it was about control and elegance. Skating became a demonstration of discipline. At this stage, figure skating was almost entirely about figures, the careful tracing of patterns. Free movement was secondary. Jumps and spins, as we know them today, didn't exist yet. That would change in the 19th century. The biggest turning point in figure skating's early history came with the development of the modern skate blade. In the mid 1800s, American skater Jackson Haynes introduced a curved blade attached directly to the boot. This innovation allowed skaters to glide, turn, and jump in ways that were previously impossible. Haynes also brought something else: music. Instead of treating skating as a rigid technical exercise, he skated to music, incorporating dance like movements and flow. This was radical. European skating circles initially rejected his style as improper, but audiences loved it. Haynes's approach spread across Europe and eventually became the foundation of modern figure skating. By the late 19th century, figure skating had become an international sport. Competitions emerged, rules were written, governing bodies formed. The sport began balancing two competing ideas: technical precision and artistic expression. When the Olympic Games were revived in the modern era, figure skating was ready. Figure skating made its Olympic debut in 1908, not at a Winter Games, but at the Summer Olympics in London. At the time, there was no separate Winter Olympics, and skating was one of the few winter sports that could be accommodated indoors. This early inclusion says a lot. Figure skating was seen as refined, elegant, and culturally significant. It fit the Olympic ideal of blending physical excellence with artistic beauty. When the first Winter Olympics were held in 1924, figure skating became a centerpiece. In the early Olympic years, competitions were dominated by European skaters. Figures were the core of judging. Skaters spent years perfecting edge control, balance, and accuracy. The ability to trace clean, symmetrical figures on the ice could decide medals. Free skating existed, but it carried less weight. This emphasis shaped training philosophies for decades. Then came Sonja Henie. In the 1920s and 30s, Norwegian skater Sonja Henie transformed figure skating forever. She introduced shorter skirts, expressive choreography, and a level of athleticism previously unseen. Henie combined technical skill with showmanship, bringing skating closer to performance art. She won 3 consecutive Olympic gold medals. More importantly, she changed expectations. Figure skating was no longer just about figures, it was about presence, about storytelling, about captivating an audience. After Heaney, the sport could never go back. Following World War II, figure skating entered a period of rapid growth. Ice rinks became more common. Television brought the sport into living rooms. Stars emerged and rivalries captivated audiences. This era also introduced greater athletic demands. Jumps became more important. Spins became faster. Programs became longer and more complex. Training intensified. Skaters became athletes in a modern sense, not just performers, but figures still mattered. For much of the 20th century, compulsory figures dominated competition results. Skaters could perform brilliantly in free skating and still lose because of weaker figures. This led to growing frustration among audiences and broadcasters who found figures difficult to understand and boring to watch. The tension between tradition and spectacle reached a breaking point. In 1990, compulsory figures were eliminated from international competition. This was one of the most consequential decisions in the sport's history. Without figures, free skating and short programs became decisive. Athleticism exploded, jumps increased in difficulty, triple jumps became standard, training methods evolved rapidly, figure skating entered its modern era. The 1990s also brought unprecedented popularity. Television ratings soared. Skaters became global celebrities. Rivalries like Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding transcended sport and entered pop culture. The drama of competition, combined with artistry and personal stories, made figure skating must watch television. But popularity brought pressure. Judging controversies increased. Subjectivity became a lightning rod. Accusations of bias, corruption, and inconsistency plagued the sport. The breaking point came at the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics. In the pairs competition, a judging scandal erupted when it was revealed that a judge had been pressured to manipulate scores. The controversy embarrassed the International Skating Union and the International Olympic Committee. The response was drastic. Figure skating abandoned its traditional 6 point judging system and introduced a new points based scoring model. Every element now carried a base value. Judges awarded grades of execution, technical panels identified elements, scores became numerical and cumulative. The goal was transparency, the result was transformation. Skaters now had to think strategically. Programs were constructed around point potential. Risk reward calculations became central. Quadruple jumps entered the men's competition and eventually became expected. Women's skating followed. For decades, women's skating emphasized artistry over power. But as scoring systems evolved, jump difficulty became unavoidable. Triple triples became common. Eventually, quad jumps entered women's competition, changing training and career longevity. This shift sparked debate. Some argue that artistry has been sacrificed for difficulty. Others argue that athletic progression is inevitable. The tension between sport and art remains at the heart of figure skating. Meanwhile, ice dance evolved separately. Originally considered a softer discipline, ice dance emphasized rhythm, interpretation, and partnership. Over time, it developed its own technical demands, with lifts, footwork sequences, and strict rules governing what is allowed. Ice dance remains the most music driven discipline and often the most subjective. Pairs skating continued to push boundaries as well. Throw jumps, lifts, and death spirals became more extreme, risk increased. So did the physical toll on athletes. Injuries became common, careers shortened, training became more specialized, yet the appeal endured. Figure skating also became deeply geopolitical. During the Cold War, skating was a stage for national pride. The Soviet Union built a dominant system, especially in pairs and ice dance. Their training methods emphasized discipline, repetition, and early specialization. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, its influence spread. Coaches moved internationally, training camps globalized. The sport became more interconnected than ever. In recent years, figure skating has continued to evolve. Social media has changed how skaters connect with audiences. Personal brands matter. Transparency about mental health, burnout, and pressure has increased. The sport is reckoning with the cost of early specialization and the demands placed on young athletes. Still, the essence remains. Figure skating is about control on an unstable surface. It's about precision under pressure. It's about telling a story while performing movements that leave no margin for error. Every jump is a risk. Every landing is a negotiation with physics. Every program is a test of memory, strength, and nerve. That is why figure skating endures as an Olympic sport. It bridges worlds. It is athletic and artistic, objective and subjective, ancient and modern, from bone skates on frozen rivers to quad jumps under Olympic lights. Figure skating's history is a story of constant reinvention without losing its core identity. At its heart, figure skating is about drawing meaning from motion. Just as early skaters traced figures into ice, modern skaters trace stories into memory. The ice melts, the marks disappear, but the moments remain. That fleeting beauty is what keeps people watching. And that is why figure skating remains one of the most iconic events in the Olympic Games, not because it is easy to judge or simple to explain, but because it captures something fundamentally human, the desire to move beautifully, even when the surface beneath you can never be trusted.